afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Witch is the Moon. I am your Friday hostess, Natalie, and this week is our Share Spell Week. Now, I'm going to be real honest with you guys. Share Spell Week is always difficult for me because my spell work is very personal to me, and I rarely do the same spell the same way twice exactly. But this is an exciting thing that I thought I'd like to share with you guys. Today, I'm going to show you how to make a flying ointment. Now, I'm going to explain a little bit about the purpose of flying ointments and the history of flying ointments. Flying ointments, for those who are not familiar, are a salve that you put on the wrists, behind the ears, sometimes behind the knees. I put it behind the knees. Anywhere where there's a pulse point that's going to allow you to get into a transcendental state. So it is a consciousness shifting ointment. Now, anytime you are using something like this, I will tell you to use great caution. Until you know how your body is going to react to this, you should use it with extreme caution, and I would not use a lot of it. So don't go like slathering it on yourself. Some of the ingredients in this ointment are poisonous and should never be ingested. So just bear that in mind. Anytime you take on something like this, you are taking on a little bit of a risk, and you need to be aware of that, which is why this video has been marked for 18 and older. Okay. That being said, as you can see, I have my little 1 ounce tins that I have set out here. I don't know how much this is actually going to make. What I do is I have a special mortar and pestle that I use only for the baneful herbs. This is my mortar and pestle for that. You will need wolfsbane, belladonna, and mandrake root. Now, every time I use something like this, I have special things that I use just for this type of herb. I don't mix things that are non-baneful with those that are baneful. So I have a separate mortar and pestle. I use gloves when I'm draining the oil and that sort of thing. So this is already mixed up, so I'll get to that in a second. What I typically do is I have a coffee filter, and this is my method of doing so. You can use any combination of these, or you can use just one of these things. I know a lot of people only use belladonna, and some people use only mandrake root in theirs. I don't know if anybody uses wolfsbane besides me, but I do. So here's what I do. Datura is another herb that's often used. I just don't happen to have that. So what I will do is I will take roughly a tablespoon, and I'll scoop it into the herb, and I'll scoop that into my mortar and pestle. And I don't know if you're going to be able to see this from the camera there, but this is the flower and the stem of the wolfsbane. So I'll close that back up. I will add a tablespoon of the mandrake root. And again, these are going straight into my mortar and pestle. Okay, so a tablespoon of the mandrake root. And then I will use a tablespoon of the belladonna. Now, this is a simple recipe. I based it very loosely on a recipe that I found online that I really liked from Sarah Lawless. Okay, so I've got the belladonna. Now, the belladonna, just so you know, is mostly the stem and leaf. And so it's going to take a little bit of working, but you want to crush it up. And the reason that we do this is because this then releases some of the oils that are in the plant. And that's what you want, is those oils to release. It's going to release that out. And all this time that I am crushing this up, I am putting in my intention. And my intention for this ointment is that we'll allow the user to achieve a high state of meditation, a high spiritual state, so that you can communicate effectively with your spirit guides, astral travel, whatever it is that your goal for meditation would be, to gain guidance, what have you. This is going to shift your consciousness. Okay, so what I will do is I will just continue with that until it's all nice and crushed up. Sometimes you have to kind of beat it in. Some of those sticks specifically, they kind of tend to stick. Okay, so once you've gotten it all crushed up and it's all kind of mixed in, you'll take what's in your mortar and pestle and you will put it into the coffee filter. You want to make sure you get all that you can out. Okay, and what I do is I will close this up by folding it like this, and then I will staple it. Now, what you do with that is you're going to take, and I believe this is 2 cups. Yeah, this is 2 cups of oil. So what I did was 1 tablespoon to 2 cups of oil. I use grapeseed oil as my carrier oil because I like the fact that it's light, but it holds a firm, so it makes a good salve. Coconut oil, I have found, does not make a great salve. I like to use it for lip balms, but it's not fabulous because it's so soft that its melt point, the minute you touch it, it just melts. Some people may like that, so it's really up to you, but I like to use grapeseed oil. And another reason why I like to use grapeseed oil is because it's light and it has really no smell of its own. Now, one thing that I do like to do, what you will do is you'll put in your oil, you're going to take your packet that's sealed up, okay, and you're going to put it in the oil. Now, the old method of doing this, you would render the pig fat and so on and so forth, but you can leave the herbs in the oil and put it in direct sunlight and allow the direct sunlight to infuse the oil for a minimum of 3 days. What I did with this is I put it out there, however, we ended up getting a lot of not so sunny days right after I did that, so I ended up having to just hard and fast do it, which would be basically you're going to put the jar into a double boiler, or like I have over here, I have a hot pot going with some water, and you just put the jar in there and let the herbs infuse, and it takes, the longer you leave it, the more infused the herbs are going to be, but 10 to 15 minutes is really probably all you need to get a good infusion. Then what I like to do is take a few drops of balm of Gilead oil and drop it in there to act as a preservative. I'm going to kind of mix that around. Now this oil has already been infused with the herbs, so I'm going to use this right now to do this. Now I'm going to go 1 cup of the oil, and again I have a cup that I use strictly for this. I have a larger one that I use for the good oils, so I'm going to put in 1 cup of the oil. Okay, so that's rendered out there. Okay, that down, I'm going to pull it back on. So I still have 1 cup of the oil here that I will keep. You want to store this in a dark place so that the oil doesn't lose any of its qualities. Then what I will do is I will take this and I'm going to put it into the pot. Now I like to use a Pyrex dish because it's glass. And if you're going to be working with something hot, you might want to use gloves. My husband got me these massive, like, heavy black padded gloves, but whatever. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to let that sit. And what I will do with this is, I don't want to use what I was just using, so bear with me 1 moment while I get another. Should have leveled this out better. I'm going to get another measuring spoon. Or measuring cup, as the case may be. Because again, I'm using beeswax. This is a beeswax base. So I have the loose beeswax pestles that you can buy from Amazon. If you have block, you can use block. But basically, I'm going to put, this is 1 teaspoon. I'm going to put a half cup of beeswax. Usually it's like, I do 1 to a half because I like kind of a firm salve. But you can play with it as much as you need to. The more beeswax you have, the thicker the salve. The less beeswax you have, the softer the salve. So I've got about 1/3 of a cup in here. So 1 cup to 1/3 of a cup, that should be enough to actually make that pretty well firm. And what you're going to do is you're going to add your beeswax directly into your oil. So I'm going to add the pestils directly into, and these little pestils, these little buggers, pustules, they are a bugger to get out all the way. You're probably going to have a few that are left over in there, but that's okay. And some like to bounce around. Now, what you're going to do is you're just going to let that melt down. And once the beeswax is melted completely and your oil is clear, okay, the beeswax is melted completely in, then you're going to simply pour it straight into your containers. I honestly don't know how many of these little 1-ounce containers this is going to hold, because you have to bear in mind that some of this burns off as you boil it. It evaporates out. Things do evaporate, so it may not be, 10, it may be 20. I don't exactly know how many this is going to yield, but I like to have my containers out and ready so that all I have to do is take this straight out. That's why I have the handle outside of the thing so it won't be hot. I can pick it up and pour it straight into my containers. And then basically you just let the containers sit until the salve has solidified. Now what I like to do is I like to fill up the jar to about the second little turny rim in there. That way it's got time to solidify. It expands as it solidifies, so you don't want to fill it all the way to the top where it'll kind of stick up. But that gives you a nice salve that, again, you can put on your wrists, behind your ears, or on your temples, behind the knees, and it will help you to get into a shifted state of consciousness. But again, these items are poisonous, so do not ingest them. I would recommend that you mark your oil very clearly so somebody doesn't come along going, gee, this looks like some good oil, I think I'll cook with it today. That could be disastrous. Because again, these things are not meant to be taken internally. And anytime you're doing something like this and you don't know how it's going to affect you, I would highly recommend that you do not operate machinery, have candles burning, anything like that. Now, usually when I'm pouring the ointment into the jars, I will speak into the jars again and offer a blessing. I usually have some sort of incense going as an offering and as a cleansing. I will always cleanse my space. The space has already been cleansed, so I didn't redo it for the camera, but I had already cleansed the space before I began, so I'm just going to put that in there with that. And so that is what you do. Now, when you take the coffee filter out, I would recommend that you use gloves, because when you take it out of the oil, before you get your jar of oil there, you're going to want to squeeze the coffee filter because it will have absorbed some of that. And you want to make sure you get all that out. So use some disposable gloves and squeeze the coffee filter to get all of the oil mixed with all of the herb out. But this way you don't have to strain your oil, so you don't have to have 4 different jars. I do it like this because coffee filters make excellent filters for that kind of thing. They do absorb in the oil, so again, you just squeeze it out into the jar and you'll have a pretty good rendering there. So that's how you make a flying ointment, at least a simple flying ointment. There are other recipes, again, if you wanted to go online and learn how to do it the old-fashioned way, which is where you actually buy the pig fat and you cut it up and you render the pig fat. Sarah Lawless, on her blog, if you look up flying ointment recipes, she has an excellent one on her blog that tells you how to render the fat and how to make it really the old-fashioned way. So I hope that that gives you guys a little bit of an idea how to make a flying ointment and how to use one. Again, please use with caution, but thank you so much for watching and blessed be.